Hello, it's Amelia, but not the pilot, just Amelia. It is June already, and that is crazy. This is my monthly reading vlog. I'm currently reading Memory Police. I'm very excited about this book. I feel like I've seen it so much. It's okay so far. It's not really like grabbing my attention. I like the concept of it, and I do think it's interesting, but I'm not like dying to read the next chapter, so we'll see how this one goes. And then my cousin just loaned me the Cruel Prince series, which I'm so excited about because I've been trying to read the series this whole year, so I'm very excited. I just started it and it's pretty good so far. I have really high expectations for young adult fantasies, so we'll see if this TikTok book meets my standards. So I'll check in with you in a couple days. Bye! Hello! Happy Flag Day! That's right, it's June 14th and I am finally checking in with what's going on this month. I just finished reading the Cruel Prince series. I mentioned reading this earlier in the month, right? But I didn't want to make a video at the end of reading the first one because honestly, I didn't like the first book that much. I really wasn't vibing with it. I thought it was fine, but I didn't think it was like amazing like everyone's talking about until I got to the second and third, and then I was in. So then I also read the like extra ones. So let's talk about it. I've been seeing this trilogy all over TikTok, and before TikTok I was seeing it all over BookTube and Instagram, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna read this young adult series eventually. Also, Holly Black's pretty popular young adult fantasy author, I'm pretty positive. I've heard her name many times, so I think she's friends with like Cassandra Clare and Sarah J. Maas and that little crew. So she's in the young adult fantasy realm. So I've heard of her. I was always gonna read these, but finally got around to it. Things I really liked about the series. It's a fairy fantasy book. So it's not wizards or whatever, it's fairies. And I don't think I've ever really read a fairy book. So I really liked that aspect of it. That was new for me, exciting. There's some mythology things, like if you're immortal and you eat fairy fruit, you go like crazy, almost sort of like alcohol or drugs. And then there's also like fairies can't tell lies. There's things like making a deal with the fairy. Fairies always speak in like a cryptic sort of way. If you have salt, then you're protected from fairies, or rowan berries protect you from fairies. Like, very interesting things. Fairies can't touch iron, it's like burns them. So I liked that whole like mythology thing, because that spices up the characters for me since I've never read any fairy books before. So I liked that. I was into it. We're vibing. And the plot it's like an interesting setup. I'm still not really sure what fell flat for me in the first book, but it just wasn't doing it for me. Like, the characters were fine, and I thought the plot was like okay, but it wasn't like super exciting and crazy. Where the second and third books, really liked them. They had a like interesting plot, and you're like, ooh, what's gonna happen? And then the 3.5 book, which is actually quite large, I'm gonna talk about after, but I really like that one. I actually gave it 5 stars. But first, let's talk about Cruel Prince. This is the first book in the trilogy. All the books are about like 250 pages, really quick reads. The Cruel Prince follows Jude, who is a mortal, who is a twin, who is, oh no, it's thundering, do you hear it? So Jude is a mortal, and she has a twin sister, and she has an older sister who is a fairy. And she lived in the mortal world with her 2 sisters until she was about 8 years old, and then this man came in and killed her entire family and then took her back to fairy world. And this man is her stepfather. And so she lives with him in his like castle in fairy world with her 2 other sisters for her like entire teenage years, and that's where we find her now. And so she's constantly dealing with the stress of navigating fairy world as a mortal and dealing with the stress of that and the ostracization of being a mortal in fairy world. There was a lot of like little metaphor things. And I think it's interesting to have a twin main character. I don't know if I've ever read another book that has twin main characters, but that added a little spice to it, a little sister a Parent Trap type of vibe every once in a while, so that was always fun. And Jude, of course, is our daring, heroic female lead, so we always love that. But she gets into trouble, and she gets into trouble by angering one of the princes of Fairyland. So she ends up angering Prince Carden, who is the very youngest and sort of like ignored prince who just goes around and like parties all day and is a cruel person. And he is a cruel prince. So book one is just her sort of like finding her place in the world, having a little adventure. There's some romance, there's some intrigue, there's some craziness, but I think what I didn't like was that it was too obvious for me. It is an interesting plot, but I almost immediately picked up on what was happening, and I liked it, but it wasn't exciting, and it wasn't like super good writing for me to like get into it, you know? So book one was okay, but I pushed on to book two, which is Wicked King, and book two is good. There's a cliffhanger at the end of book one, which I will not spoil for you because I thought it was like a little crazy. I was like, oh, okay, this is finally good. It was like the last 10 chapters or 10 pages of the book, and I was like, okay, I need to read the second one now because that was wild. So it now puts Jude into a crazy position in the court of Fairyland. So now she's sort of high up. She has power. She's always wanted power because power protects you. And so now she has power and tries to keep the power, and the power destroys her a little bit, you know? And yet again, ends with a great cliffhanger where again I'm like, what's gonna happen to her? So then of course I read book three, Queen of Nothing, which was the best book out of the entire trilogy. So I did indeed like the series. I just didn't, like, book one was just fine. I would say like maybe 3 stars, maybe. And then book 2 and 3 were like, yes, this is what we want, young adult fantasy. It also features a enemies to lovers plot, which, you know, we all love that. So nice little slow burn for you. Crazy happenings, very good. There is a 0.5 book, I think it is after the first one, so I think it's 1.5 that I read, which was like fine. It was from her twin sister's perspective, which was like, okay, cool. And then there's 3.5, so this comes after the trilogy, and this is from Prince Carden's perspective, which I really, really liked because it gave him a whole backstory, and it elaborated more on like his personality and why he's thinking what he thinks. But it's also illustrated. Look at that, it's very nice. And this, look at this. Look at this! Just read the book just for this. So the entire book is illustrated, and the like writing is a bit bigger, and there's illustrations on every page for the most part of some sort. So there's half-page ones, like partial side page ones, and it's just really pretty illustration. But I really liked it because it's Prince Carden's perspective, but also it had a bit of like a fairy tale morals aspect to it, and I really like fairy tale stories. Like I love a good moral story where they're at the end you're like, and I love new fairy tales, you know, because I feel like everyone has heard of the Pied Piper, everyone has heard Little Red Riding Hood, everyone heard like all those moral stories, but like the one that's told in this is like a completely new fairy tale that I've never heard of before. But what I really liked about this is that they told the fairy tale 3 times throughout the story, and each time they tell it, they change it slightly because it has to do with the plot, you'll see. But I really liked that aspect of it. It was very interesting. And it also includes like a little story at the end. And the plot follows Carden from when he was really young to some random scenes in the first one and a couple other ones throughout the trilogy. And then at the end of the book, it has a few stories about this new adventure with Carden. So I liked it a lot. I liked this series. It was good. I do actually recommend it. So TikTok was correct. Is it worth all the fuss and the hype? No, but it was a good young adult fantasy series, and it's fairies, which I feel like isn't written about that much. Well, nowadays I feel like it is, but back in my young adult fantasy days, it wasn't. So I enjoyed this. Next, I'm still reading Memory Police, so I'm hoping to finish that soon because I have a problem. I keep getting books out of the library and it's causing problems. Anyway, I'm gonna try to finish this week, hopefully, so that then I could read Mr. Impossible. I'm so excited to get this out of the library. I'm so lucky because I was the first person to get the copy. It just came in. I'm so excited to read it. I'm currently re-listening to Call Down the Hawk just to refresh my memory, and so I'm hoping to finish that audiobook tomorrow so that I could then start this. But the audiobook is sort of funny. The reader for it is like this super grovelly old man voice, and he sounds really cool, which is a little distracting from the story, but I also like it because that's definitely what Ronan's voice is. So 10 out of 10. So I'm hoping to finish that and then read this. And then I also got Rule of Wolves out of the library, so I'm super excited about that. But this one is like super chunky thick, and so I'm gonna read this one first and then this one. And I think I remember everything that just happened in King of Scars, so I am not going to reread King of Scars. I'm just going to go straight into this, hopefully. And I also got Fable out of the library. I've been seeing this one everywhere. I really don't know anything about it besides the fact that the cover has a face on it and that the other cover to the sequel also has a face. And so I got this one out, and I'm on the list for the second one, so I'm hoping to get that within the next couple weeks, but I'm excited to read this one as well. I'm just excited to be reading young adult fantasy again, to be honest. I was getting a little bored with my adult books. Adult fiction is good, but it just doesn't hit like young adult fantasy does, you know? That's all I have for you today. I will see you soon. Good morning. It is, I don't even know what date it is anymore. June 24th, I think. This is my last wrap up for the month. I'm sitting on a lot of books right now. I am almost done with Maggie Stiefvater's Mr. Impossible. It is so good. I love the way she writes. I love the topics she's writing about, like the fantasy aspects, the whole dreamer concept. It just gets me so excited. This is the sequel to her Dreamer trilogy, featuring Ronan Lynch, which is one of the squad members from the Raven Cycle books. If you haven't read her books, you need to. She's such an amazing author. Like, the way she writes is beautiful, but also good fantasy, super original, and like, it's just the whole package, to be honest. The characters are so good. I love the characters so much. So I'm almost done with this. 10 out of 10. It's a banger. We love it. Next up, I'm planning on reading Rule of Wolves. This is a chunky one, but I'm going on a trip next week, so I'm hoping to read it in the airplane and throughout the week. I hope it doesn't put me over my baggage weight limit. This is also a sequel. It is the sequel to the Grishaverse series thing. King of Scars was the first one. So this is the trilogy. I think it's going to be a trilogy about Nikolai, which is the one prince from the Shadow and Bone series. I'm very, very excited about this book. Also very, very excited that season 2 of Shadow and Bones is confirmed. Yeah! I can't wait to get a Nikolai casting. I cannot wait. This week I also finished reading Crying in H Mart. Jesus Christ, it was so sad, but so good. You guys should definitely check it out. The audiobook was also great because the author read it. It is about a Korean American girl's experience. She is mixed, and she discusses her struggles as a Korean American mixed girl growing up in America, but also her struggles with her mother dying from cancer. It is terribly sad, and it talks a lot about food, and it was really, really good. I also just finished reading Half-Blood Prince as an audiobook yet again, and I'm listening to Caste right now by Isabel Wilkerson. Is also very, very good. I think it might be one of my favorite anti-racism books I've read so far, because it's bringing a lot of new concepts into the anti-racism picture, such as the fact that America has a caste system. Like, it's not just racism, it's a caste system. and that is very, very interesting. She's also making a lot of allusion similarities to slavery in America and enslaved people, the casteism in India, and also Nazi Germany, and it's very upsetting and very eye-opening and interesting, and I really recommend reading it or listening. My only problem with the audiobook is that she is not reading it, it's somebody else. I'm a little disappointed, but it's so good. You need to check it out. That's all I have for you guys this month. I am very excited for next month's books. I'm not sure if I'm going to do another one of these monthly wrap-ups because I'm trying to take it slow this summer, so I might not read as much. So maybe I'll see you in September or maybe next month. Who knows? Thanks for watching, guys. Bye!